We're good? No. Okay, good evening and welcome to City Council for Wednesday, March 25th. We are going to get started. If you'll bear with us tonight, we do have a quick meeting we need to take care of before our general meeting, which is our Herriman City Fire Service Area meeting. So we'll call that meeting to order at this point. Our one item on the agenda is a public hearing and consideration of a resolution amending the fiscal year 2026 Herriman City Fire Safety Area budget. So Kyle, we'll turn to you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a one-item request. So as the Herriman City Council is aware, the city is looking at purchasing some fire station land in the southeast corner of the city. However, we have received initial appraisals back that are significantly higher than what we had budgeted in the impact fee fund. So the budget amendment before you tonight would use $900,000 of fund balance to put with the $1 million that we do have in impact fee funding already to accomplish the purchase if the city council ends up approving that transaction. The plan would be, as we collect impact fees, it would get transferred back to the fire service area and reimburse the service area for that expense as we collect impact fees. Any questions for the public hearing for me? Thank you.
I see none. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, at this point, we will open the public hearing for this item. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Motion by Teddy, second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution number R01-26, approving the amendment to the 2026 fiscal year budget.
Motion by Matt.
Second.
Second by Jared. We'll go Jared.
Yes.
Teddy.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Tara.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Okay, look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, we'll now go into our regular meeting, and we'll start that tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance by Chase Andreezy.
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chase. Okay, we'll go to item 4.2. Any city council comments or recognitions tonight? Seeing none tonight, we'll move on to our public comment portion tonight. I'm just going to step in. By raise of hands, who's here to speak to the trail? Everybody. Not them in the back. Okay. Let's do this for the trail tonight. Adam, you had reached out with expressing, if council's okay with this, I'd like to do a public hearing or a public comment during that portion. So if you've got a public comment tonight on the trail, we're going to do that during, so you can hear what our presentation is, what the results are. Then we'll open the public comment, and then that we kind of hear what the results are, what the study shows, and then, so if you're here tonight to speak to anything other than that right now, at this point, we'll open the public comment. Audience members may bring any item within the city's purview to the city council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. Public comments for this meeting will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the council may submit a comment by emailing recorder@herriman.gov or by visiting herriman.gov/agendas and minutes, where there's a link to fill out an online public comment form. Your statement will be incorporated into the public record. So if there's any other public comment not related to the trail, we'll take it now. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our city council reports tonight. We'll start with Jared.
Just for public consumption, because everyone here is up to speed on the garbage board, Wasatch Front Waste Recycling District. We've been in a process with them for nearly a year to separate from that district and then contract for those services directly through a private provider. Those talks are moving along. We kind of stalled out, but we worked with our partners and were able to change some of the legislation that lets us exit that service district a little bit easier. That's really where we are right now. I don't think we've had any real contact with them the last couple of weeks since that legislation was passed, but we'll keep working on that from me on the board and then the committee that we've been working with to negotiate that exit. For the public, what that means is that really all you'll probably see is just a difference in the billing, and the amount you'll pay will be less. We can go private and save about 25% or so. And then for UFA, for the fire district, I won't bore you with all of that. We're in the middle of that budget season. We've had 3 committee meetings, a couple of board meetings, and now it goes to the finance committee, which I chair this next month or so, and I'll report back with that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jared. Teddy?
This week was the week of meetings, so I actually got to go to West Jordan City Hall last night and listen to their governing body speak at their city council meeting, and I'm glad we do ours our way. It's very different. Jordan Basement Improvement District, we have concluded our plant tours and our RFPs for our new plant expansion. We're in the picking our contractor now, our engineer firm, so that's going to be coming up very soon. We have a big conference the week before, league conference in April. I'll be down for the wastewater sewer treatment conference. We have several members getting awards from Jordan Basement Improvement District, so it should be a pretty big deal there for us. South Valley Chamber, we had our update, our board meeting this morning. We talked about the update for the year. We had an update of the Point and their development. We also had an update on the Shark Tank for the youth entrepreneurs that the chamber does, and also their new small business award program that they're going to be hosting this year. So that's the reports I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Matt?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. Tara?
I was able to go with the Herriman Youth Council up to Logan for the USU Leadership Conference. We had a group of 19 of us total there, and it was a great theme of United We Stand, a real emphasis on being able to have good conversations, leadership skills, being able to work together even when we disagree at times. But it was a great experience for our youth council. And just a note, in the next month or 2, the applications will be open for next year's youth council, and just would encourage everyone to apply. Well, every high school student.
Great.
So
Thank you. Go ahead.
clarification on that, is that for incoming 9th graders?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Couple things I can report on. I can't remember if we brought this up, but Herriman was awarded a $50 million grant from the state this year for some roads out west. I don't know if we mentioned that in public 2 weeks ago. But we were, out of $70 million, we were awarded $50 million of that. So that will help with some roads out west to accommodate that growth that is happening out there. And then the other report I was gonna, sorry, bear with me 1 second. Can't remember what else I was going to talk about. Sorry, give me 1 second. Maybe that was it. Okay, I think that was it. I thought I had one more thing, but I can't track it down, so I won't make everybody hold up. So, okay, with that, we will move over to our reports tonight. We're going to start with our UFA 2025 annual report, and we welcome Division Chief Anthony Widdison. The floor is yours, my friend.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to be here to give you a brief report. I will be brief. This is just a high-level overview of fire and EMS service delivery in Herriman for 2025. This report really is just to give you a picture of what your fire and EMS system is actually responding to on a daily basis, show how the system is performing, and particularly the response times, and then highlight any trends that may help inform future planning. At a high level, in 2025, we responded to 2,245 incidents within Herriman City, and about 40% of those incidents were what we call emergent calls or priority 1 calls. So these are lights and sirens type responses. Primary call type is medical emergencies, and you'll see that throughout this presentation, that the majority of what we do is respond to medical calls. They're medical in nature and not fire. This is really consistent throughout all fire-based EMS systems in the nation. When we look at the call volume, sorry, let me back up here. There are a couple things to point out here. We're seeing a gradual increase in volume year over year. And there's a predictable seasonal pattern that we see as well. We tend to see higher activity in the summer and fall months. That's just tied to increased activity outside. People are moving around, more travel and that. This is a manageable and expected trend, but it's definitely something that we keep our eye on as the community continues to grow. When we break it down to what people in Herriman are actually calling 911 for, it's pretty relatable. We're talking about falls, seizures, breathing problems, cardiac issues, motor vehicle crashes, things that are happening in everyday life. Again, most of these are medical in nature, and this is what drives most of the demand. Fire calls make up a much smaller portion of our overall workload, but when they do happen, they are high risk, high consequence, and high impact events. That's really what drives the need for staffing, training, and equipment. When those incidents occur, the expectation is that we respond quickly and effectively. So even though they're less frequent, they're still a critical part of the overall system. Emergency response performance remained consistent throughout the year, even during periods where call volume increased. We didn't see any meaningful changes in our response performance. That tells us that the system is keeping pace with the current demand. And from a city perspective, that's what we want to see. We want to see a stable, reliable performance as the community continues to grow. When we look at response performance, just a couple of things that I want to mention about that performance data. We look at dispatch time. Dispatch time is just when the 911 center receives the call to when they dispatch that to the station or the unit. We look at turnout times. Turnout time is when the station or the unit receives the call and are en route to the incident. We look at travel time, so that is from point of departure to arrival at the incident, and then we also look at total time for our metrics. We measure those based off of data that is in the community risk assessment, or benchmarks that are in the community risk assessment and the standards of cover. I just want to briefly mention that we have a regional response model and what that looks like. We dispatch the closest available unit regardless of the boundary. So sometimes you're going to see some Herriman units in Riverton and some Riverton units in Herriman. In fact, like Station 123 has, in their first due response area, they have some of Riverton in that first due. But similarly, Station 121 in Riverton has some Herriman in their first due response as well. So all of that is by design. That is to improve the response time and help maintain the reliable system. A few things that are worth watching from 2025 is we continue to see that gradual increase year over year in total call volume. There's a slight seasonal increase in emergent calls, and we continue to see that consistent demand for medical-related emergencies. Nothing here is really unexpected, but these are trends that can help guide our decision-making moving forward. On the other hand, lot of things remain consistent. Like I've said, medical calls continue to be the driver for demand. Fire calls, fire incidents remain to be low frequency but high impact, and our response times have remained consistent. So overall, the system is operating as we expected. Looking forward, as Herriman continues to grow, we do expect demand for service to continue to increase over time. Our focus is really on monitoring those trends, maintaining performance, and ensuring that the system itself evolves with the community as it grows. Lastly, before I wrap up, I just want to recognize the city's support and leadership in prioritizing the rebuild of Station 103. That's a significant investment in both the firefighters and the community, and that facility is going to be a benefit to the Herriman residents for years to come. So appreciate your partnership in moving that forward. With that, I'd take any questions. Thanks.
Go ahead. Yeah. No. Anthony, I would say, sorry, I thought you were going to say something. And Anthony, thank you to Unified Fire for your partnership, for the way you serve our community at events, at all the extra stuff you guys go above and beyond as well. And I know we've been having some individual discussions lately, and I think that's been crazy beneficial. So thank you, and Jared, your representation on the board as well. So thank you. So appreciate the partnership and all you guys do. So absolutely. Tell everybody thank you for us. So.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, we'll go on to item 9.1 tonight. This is a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to approve the updated Transportation Master Plan, Impact Fee Facility Plan, Impact Fee Analysis, and an Impact Fee Enactment that would impose a Transportation Impact Fee. Bryce.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. And Mayor, good job on a mouthful of title there for this item. So,
if it's not just the title, I don't want to know how long the presentation is.
It's up to you. We'll keep it pretty snazzy, but yeah, it's up to you. So, yeah, as you all know, we've been working on an update to our Transportation Master Plan for about the last year now, and so we're finally at hopefully the finish line here on getting this adopted. So, yeah, let's just jump right in. So, as Trevor even kind of previewed this in the work meeting, but a significant portion of the work of the Transportation Master Plan is really looking at socioeconomic data in Herriman specifically. So Wasatch Front Regional Council carries a model for, the entire, well, for most of the Wasatch Front, right? What we do with the Transportation Master Plan, we take their base model and we zoom in and make, some adjustments to their model that we believe could be a little bit more accurate, or we're kind of more focusing on the micro, where their model's more of the macro model. So based on that, our consultant WCG took all of our development agreements, all of our zoning, and looked at little traffic analysis zones in the city. So they're just kind of little trapezoids or other types of shapes within the city that we account for how many households are going to be in there and how much employment's going to be in there. And then based on looking at, data that's coming in, what is the household size? And then we project land use and population and total trips for the transportation system. So, obviously, Herriman is continuing to grow. We show in 2035 the growth is going to continue all the way till 2050 is where our model ends. That's kind of the final scenario. And so, like we said, obviously this is a projection. Things change. We've seen in previous models that the projections were higher, and as we get a little bit closer, we're dialing in a little bit better on our data. The nice thing is that in working with Trevor, we've been able to use this project to be a base for all other master plans, and even some of our data that we're looking at, we can refine and use this data. So, but yeah, so that's the base for the Transportation Master Plan. To know how much traffic or how much trips are going to be, we need the base data of how many people are going to be living here, how many jobs are going to be in the city, where are they going, what are the roads going to look like. So once we establish that, we then look at 3 scenarios of years. So 2025, when we were doing it, was the existing year. Then we look at 2035 and see, okay, how much growth has happened and what is the traffic change? What does it do to the roads? Then we look out to 2050. And again, these are all projections. So in Herriman, we're generally updating our master plans, every 3 to 4 years because of the growth and how much changes. So based on the traffic that we model, we then look at, okay, where are roads failing? Where are we showing that we're over capacity? We have major delays. And then we build a project list based on that. And the project list can be widening projects, it can be new roads, it can be intersection improvements. And so that's the base. And what we're looking at today, there's a PDF that summarizes all this. It's over 100 pages. And so that's what we're adopting, but there's also an online story map on our website that makes that easily digestible. It's an interactive map, so you can click on roads and see what phase they're in. So that would be a suggestion to the public, take a look at that if there's questions. But yeah, I'll just hit the highlights of the master plan and the impact fee analysis and kind of go from there. So yeah, like I said, there's 2 types of projects. We're showing intersection and roadway segment projects. So this shows all of our intersection projects planned out by the master plan out to 2050. As you can see, a lot of phase 1 projects. So we're calling phase 1 projects anytime from 2025 to 2034. Those are the red dots. The phase 2 projects are the blue dots, so 2035 to 2044. And then phase 3, which you don't actually see except for in a couple cases on here, is 2045 to 2050, so out quite a ways. And again, as you can see, because of the growth, especially in Olympia, but also down in the South Hills area, we're seeing a lot of those projects be in the phase 1 phase. And then additionally, we look at roadway segments, right? So these are the projects we're looking at. So here, the color is still the phase, but then if you look at the line type, the solid line type means we're widening a road. The dashed line means we're building a new road. Again, you can see with the growth in Olympia, there's a lot of projects planned in Olympia and that area, but also projects down to the southeast of the city. And then we do show Mountain View Corridor as their project is coming up, but as I'll talk about this, it's not part of our cost or any project cost to us, but it does impact the model. Once we have that freeway in the center of Mountain View Corridor, it does impact how traffic gets in and out of the city. So with that said, we have those 3 phases. We have these project lists. We then, from the master plan, look at the impact fee facility plan. So these are those phase 1 projects that we're looking at, and we're calling those impact fee eligible. Now, it's a little bit more complex than that because some of these projects might be shared with South Jordan, like up on 118th South. A lot of those projects are going to be split with the South Jordan. And additionally, of these projects, so there's a total cost for the roadway. Say it's $4 million for a roadway. The only percentage that is impact fee eligible is the growth trips. So the intent of impact fees is growth pays for growth. So for example, Juniper Crest, we've got some partners here working on Juniper Crest connecting to Mountain View Corridor. When we build that road, there's going to be a massive amount of existing residents that use that road the day we open it, right? And we look over a 10-year period and say how much of the new growth in the city is actually using that. So if 25% of the traffic on that road is the new growth, the new homes, the new move-ins over the next 10 years, that's how much is impact fee eligible. And you'll see that if you look into the impact fee analysis and the impact fees facility plan, because of the way impact fees are set up by the state in Utah, generally we're looking at 20% to 80% of the new roads even are impact fee eligible, which means we're covering not 100% of the costs, but a portion of the costs with the impact fees. The other is currently, and we'll have to look into the best way, the other 50% might be coming from general fund or a grant or from somewhere else. So it is something to think about, just kind of long-term, how we fund these projects, and impact fees can only take us so far on these projects. So based on that, so we have the three documents: the master plan that comes up with the projects, the impact fee facility plan, which narrows down what is eligible for impact fees, that phase one project list. And then from there, we see, okay, of the total cost, how much is impact fee eligible, and then how do we translate that to charging new development? So on a building permit, these are going to be charged to a new home or a new business. And we see, based on our new model, the impact fees are actually going down quite a bit from what we had in 2023. And this is largely due to the adoption of public infrastructure districts in the city. So South Hills and Wasatch, and DAI has a PID in the southeast corner. And then we have the Auto Mall PID and the Olympia PIDs. Those were existing with the last transportation update. But then also one of the big projects that was on our project list was 126 widening, which has been discounted for UDOT to carry that cost. So based on those things, our cost per trip is how the impact fee is calculated is going down by about 27%. What this means is for like a single family home, the way they calculate that is how many trips or how many times to and from are you coming from your house in a day. They look at this on a national average. It's not specific to Utah. They say a single family home on average has 9 trips a day. So whether that's, going to the gas station, going to work, going to pick up at school, drop off, come back, each trip is one way. So they say, okay, on average, there's about 9 trips per day from a single family home. So we're going to multiply that by our cost per trip that we came up from the impact fees. So in this case, a single family home, when they're applying for a building permit, will pay $2,700, where it was previously almost $3,900. So our impact fees are going down. Obviously, this has an impact to our revenue and our model projections on revenue that we've been working on accounting for, which means we will have to make adjustments to the CIP in the long run. The bright side to the impact fees going down is it makes it a more inviting economic development area. As you know, that has come up to several of our businesses. They note how much the impact fees are, specifically the transportation and traffic impact fee, that's one of the barriers from them building in Herriman. So there is that bright side that economic development may see a benefit from having that lower impact fee. So finally then, so again, impact fees are focused on the next 10 years, but again, back to the transportation master plan, we're looking out all the way to 2050. If we build all the projects and do all the widening, intersection improvements, and new roads, how do we end up in 2050? So the green area means, hey, our volume is below capacity. We're looking at a great level of service. Yellow means you're going to see delays at certain times of the day. And red means we're at or exceeding capacity of that road. So you can see there's, even with widening projects planned, there are some major traffic patterns coming into Herriman in 2050 based on our land use projections. 71,000, so those numbers are in thousands of cars per day. So if you look at 126 South, the dark red, that we're working with UDOT. Again, it seems like every couple of years, UDOT's looking at what to do with 126 and how can they handle this traffic. I don't think it's been worked out or solved at this point, but they are doing another study currently to look at 126. What can they do to accommodate this massive amount of traffic in and out of the city? And we see that, as you can imagine, from Mountain View to Bangor, once the Mountain View freeway's in and Bangor's been converted to a freeway, there is a massive amount of traffic between those two. So they've discussed a freeway-to-freeway connection or, large widening projects, flex lanes to go in more lanes in one direction in the morning and then in the afternoon shifting it the other direction. So there are some challenges ahead that we'll have to continue to work with UDOT on, or on 134th, you see we're getting pretty close there in the Riverton area, in between, again, Mountain View and Bangor, that we'll have to work with Riverton on, being able to make those solutions work. And then, yeah, as our model does show, if we do connect road at Real Vista Drive to the east, there is a big demand for that. A lot of people want to use that once that's connected, so just something of note. But yeah, with that said, I can answer any questions on any three of the documents. So there's the master plan, the transportation master plan, the impact fee facility plan, and the impact fee analysis that I can answer questions on.
Questions from council?
I would just say like the interactive part of this and being able to go in and slide scales and see before and after. The website's fantastic, so if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, like, please do, because it is really informative.
Yeah, and like I said, these are just the highlights. Even on that interactive map, you can get into, safety, where we're looking at safety, where we're looking at, traffic projections, where we're looking at, all aspects of our transportation system, transit, kind of what are the plans there. And so that interactive map, I agree 100%. It's much easier to digest than our 100-page PDF that then you have to go through page by page and try and figure out. But yeah, you can slide the scenario. If we didn't build this road versus if we did build this road, what does that look like? So yeah, I agree.
Guess we're easy. Okay.
Well, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
You're like waiting for more? I don't think we have any more, Bryce.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We'll do the public hearing and see if we need you again. Okay, so at this point, we will open this item for the public hearing. Adam? Okay, we'll close the public hearing with a motion.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Motion by Teddy,
Second.
second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion, or I'll look for a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance number 2026-06, adopting an updated transportation master plan.
Second?
Motion by Jared, second by Teddy. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Look for that next motion.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2026-07, adopting a transportation impact fee facilities plan, transportation impact fee analysis, and an impact fee enactment that imposes a transportation impact fee, providing for the calculation and collection of such fee, and providing for appeal accounting severability of the same and other related matters.
Second?
Motion by Jared, second by Teddy. We'll go Tara.
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries as well.
Auctioneering.
Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, we'll go to item 10 tonight, our consent agenda. And I know we need to make a change here.
Yes.
Matt, do you want to make that since, or Tara?
Sure. Motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 10.4, approval of ordinance to amend section 4-2-3 of the Herriman City Code regarding fireworks discharge restrictions and adopting the updated restriction map.
Okay, got a motion on the table.
I'll second.
Second by Tara. Tara?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. So we'll bring 10.4 forward. Are you coming up, Wendy? Okay. We're going to bring Wendy up. Matt, Tara, do you want to drive this one? Kind of just your comments?
Just like from the review of the map, I just have some general concerns given the summer that we're looking at having with just the dryness and, the water restrictions and all that kind of stuff. I just think that we need to take just another look at that map and to make sure that we are covering all of those, potential areas that may have increased exposure, given our water situation that we're currently looking at. So maybe just have some additional input from the staff, making sure that we've addressed those. Did you have a comment, Nathan?
Did you have us, oh, go ahead, Nathan.
I was just going to say, if you have specific areas you want us to focus on, or maybe specific rationales, areas you're concerned about, that would guide us in how we look at this.
So particularly for me, in the area of the city-owned property that is behind the Cove Park, which has, a bunch of scrub oak, dry, it's kind of like a dry creek bed generally is what it is for the vast majority of the year. And being able to, potentially set off fireworks in areas that are directly adjacent, to that. So possibly looking at adding those areas as a restriction, south of where Rose Canyon Road is heading, to the west. If there's any, that's probably the one spot in my district, that we have concerns about. And then I guess also in the very west border of Herriman that borders High Country 1. It's a High Country 1 right there. How the potential impact of being able to, set off fireworks directly adjacent to that area that is
There we go.
can be a tinderbox. We've had fires in that area recently in the last few years having to do with fireworks. So I understand that, High Country is outside the city boundaries, but I think we need to
It's still in our coverage area for our UFA stations. Maybe just a suggestion, when this comes back, if we're gonna have a discussion about it, Chief, if you'll be prepared with just some information on how we go about drawing this map, and why. I always get the question of, why is this area red and why is this not? It's right next to us, et cetera. But then I'd like numbers, right? So the statistics, the number of actual fires we respond to every year, and the number of those that happen within that couple of weeks in July that are firework related, I always think is pretty eye-opening. Yeah. Well, and we can say broader as well, but our community as well as our coverage area, yeah.
We should also point out, there are properties on here that are crosshatched at the request of, they're either the schools or other large property owners who've said they do not want fireworks on their property, and requested that we crosshatch it out. So you'll see sometimes.
Put my house on there.
Why is that one in there?
Yeah, there's the civic buildings and community buildings. I think from years past, we've talked in intense depth about these maps and dialed it in, and there's very good reasoning for these areas. I think it probably wouldn't hurt to expand a lot of those areas, especially on the borders of the city where it may be adjacent to a property or in the county property, but it's still adjacent to dry stuff out there.
We're all bracing for an extreme fire year.
I mean, even our city parks, I'm assuming they're all on here, all our city properties hashed out, so.
All the city properties are, but there
Yeah.
could be adjacent properties that are right next to, like the Cove,
Yeah.
where they are allowed.
I mean, I would love, this is me saying this, so take it for a grain of salt. I would love a ban on a lot of it, especially maybe for a year or two until we see what's happening. But as you know, I enjoy my fireworks. But that will be a foregoed event this year. We'll have something else there because of this danger. It's just a lot more risk and exposure than I want to take personally, so.
Councilmember Anderson, did you have something to add? No? Okay.
Wendy, I would say the one thing I think what Matt was talking about earlier too is a lot of these areas, we have the area covered that's like where there's brush, but we don't have it just next to it, permitted, right? So I think that adjacent area, I think we need to expand those. Like I look over by Slick, seems like we have a fire over by Slick every year, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we have that hashed out, but that neighborhood just to the north of that needs to be, because they could shoot from there.
Well, it's
That
200
neighborhood
feet, 200
into the-
feet. from that line,
But
so.
it's- yeah.
Right.
We're limited by state code too.
Right. Again, as long as we're looking at, I guess, those are the areas those are the areas I'm concerned about, those areas adjacent to all that brushy
So-
area.
I mean, it's going to be hard to visualize 200 feet on this map, or even if we did another different color hashed out, it's going to look convoluted, but I think it's very hard for people to see 200 feet and know what it is, so.
Yeah, because I looked at this map and I look at this, that I can't shoot them in this area. I mean, I'm reading that, but some people are going to look at the map. That's where I'm concerned. Some people are going to look at this map and just think that's the only area they can.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cities, well, I shouldn't say a lot, there are some cities that just flat out have a citywide ban. And as we get closer to the season, if it is indeed looking to be extreme conditions, then, I mean, I don't want to,
I think that's a
I don't want to
good
be alarmist,
question.
but I
No,
think we
I-
need to set some expectations that, like, this is an extreme year.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question for Whittison. We adopt a map every year. We go through this process and have to turn it into Salt Lake County for their records and for them to have. If something does change and it does become an extreme year for fires, what do they do with that map at that point?
I've seen some municipalities change that, right? They've lowered it,
Okay.
you know, that down based on environmental conditions that are prevalent. So, yeah, I've seen that. I don't know if there's anything in code or statute that would happen. Yeah, and as far as seeing this, where you are, this map is probably difficult for people to see, but this gets sent to Salt Lake County, and they make that into an interactive map.
If you can. Okay.
Question, I see that the neighboring civic places just to the north of us are not hashed out.
It's not our map. That's their map.
Okay,
So
good
they
to know.
submit their own, each
okay.
municipality.
So this map, the boundaries take into account the 200 feet, right? It's not the crosshatch plus 200 feet?
The
What is
crosshatch
crosshatch?
plus 200.
That's where I didn't understand it either, till just, yeah.
So can we make a map that includes the 200 feet, so it's just like a real map?
Is that hard?
Won't be hard for GIS.
It'd be in.
It's hard-
in
it's hard for
scale, It would be the
enforcement.
width of a line, or less.
If you're
We tried to
zooming
follow
in,
roads and lot lines,
Oh,
because then they'll split a lot in two.
Or split a road and one side can light fireworks, but the other side of the street cannot.
Because and maybe another time, like, I'd love to hear more about enforcement. I know my neighbor is in the crosshatch and there's fireworks every year. And I'm sure that's really difficult, but, I mean, it's hard to make a map if we can't enforce it too.
Right, right.
But maybe it helps with citations.
And that's the other level of, like, if the worst happens and there is a ban, or that's what we choose to, or increase the limits, the enforcement feature of those 2-3 weeks, triple, quadruple.
That's, I just made sidebar comment. Unfortunately, I think we're inching closer and closer to how do you pick and choose and how do you enforce something? I think we're just inching closer and closer to what some other cities have done, or just, yeah, just for the safety of our city and enforcement's sake, et cetera. There's just a ban in the city.
let's keep talking. I think we got to keep, I mean, we got a couple of weeks, I think, to see how the weather shapes out and where the state's going with it, see if anything comes from the governor and the legislature.
But I also think it brings up a good point about a potential issue even with our own events, of what we do there as well.
But that's a little bit different because it's a professional firework display
And
and
they're
not.
a higher, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
they make the
it's
calls
a
based on-
different discussion.
Controlled, people
Yeah.
on staff, people on, yeah.
In proper areas, yeah.
We're highly regulated by fire. They're there, so.
Okay, well, I think, let's make a motion to continue this and bring it back then.
Okay.
Are we okay with that? You got enough, feel like you've got enough, Wendy, Nathan, Chief, to go with that? Okay. Can we make a motion to continue this item?
So
Go ahead.
Second?
Is that a motion?
I said so.
Oh, you did?
You said, do I have a
Okay,
motion?
gotcha. Okay, motion by Jared, second by Teddy. Roll call, right, Jackie? What's that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go to 11.1 tonight. Discussion regarding the results of the community meeting on the intersection of Herriman Rose Boulevard and Herriman Main Street. Bryce?
Okay, yeah, let's jump into this one. So it's a topic we've discussed many times over the last 2 years, but the intersection of Herriman Rose Boulevard and Herriman Main Street, which is just down the road from this building. So quick background to bring everyone up to speed. Back in 2024, the city, police department, and the school worked together to relocate the crossing of Main Street for the safe route to school for Silvercrest Elementary from the intersection we're talking about, Herriman Rose and Herriman Main Street, which is uncontrolled, no traffic signal, no stop sign, to the adjacent traffic signal at just to the east there, about 600 feet. When this happened, there was a lot of concern from the public and mostly from the school community of students walking that detour that they were used to crossing at Herriman Rose, and now they had to go all the way to the east to that traffic signal on the right side of the page, cross Herriman Main Street, and then come all the way back to the west here to the school. And so the school community asked us to look at solutions. We looked specifically at that intersection for a traffic signal, whether it would warrant for a traffic signal. This was in September of 2024. Based on our study, we looked over 2 weeks of traffic data, we look at pedestrian data, we look at crash data, and there's a national standard that's established on when we should install a traffic signal. We call it a traffic signal warrant. At that time, it did not meet any of those warrants for a traffic signal at that location. If it did meet the warrant, we still, from an engineering perspective, have a few concerns about the location of installing a traffic signal there. You can't, this picture cuts it off a little bit, but on the west side you have a curve, and on the east side you have a curve, which limits visibility of that intersection, which is part of the reason why the safe route was moved towards the traffic signal to the east. But additionally, the proximity to that traffic signal would create some disruption in traffic patterns. So this was back in the end of 2024. We looked at a traffic signal, said it doesn't warrant. If it did warrant, we'd still have to figure out some solutions for this being a bad location for the traffic signal. Then a community meeting was held in December of 2024. Mostly the community that showed up were specific to Silvercrest Elementary and getting kids to school there. And so we heard from that meeting, hey, we don't like your setup. You got to make something safer at Herriman Rose for the kids to get to school. Now, that could be attributed to many things. Speed on Herriman Main Street, looking at that intersection specifically, what could we do to make the school crossing or the crossing safer there? So we looked at many scenarios. We looked at a full median, just continuing a median right through the road, not allowing any movement through that median. We looked at a roundabout because that was suggested. Roundabout wasn't feasible. We looked at some hawk signals and just at some preliminary analysis, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Again, a bad location for it just because of the sight distance issues. So we came up with an alternative that was a little bit out of the box. It was, creating a median in the middle of that intersection that allowed a pedestrian to bypass left turns so they're never in conflict with the left turn. And it kind of enabled them to snake through the intersection in a median, right? So they would cross to the middle of the road and then be in a pedestrian refuge median, cross over, and then cross the other side of the road. So based on this, we discussed this with council and the school community council, and in discussions, we agreed that we could apply for a Safe Route to School grant that is administered through UDOT. And that was in May of 2025. We presented that project, and then a few months after, UDOT notified us that we were selected to win the award for that grant in September of 2025. And then when we were notified by UDOT later, probably a couple months later. UDOT notified us because we discussed this. Okay, now that we could do this project, the funding could be in place. UDOT's funding was contingent on making that the safe route to school. That was what the funding was based on, was safe route to school funding. And so we brought that back to council and said, hey, it does require us to make that the safe route to school. And then council gave the feedback, hey, let's go to a public meeting, see what the feedback is before we make any decisions. So that's when we held the community meeting in February. We sent out notices. There were a lot of postcards that went out, very good attendance at the meeting. And on those postcards and on our notices, we put out QR codes that if they couldn't make the meeting, they could submit a comment and we would track that comment. And then at the meeting, we had some screens up, but again, we were using that QR code to track all of the official comments. Now, we had discussions and council members had discussions with people that I'll talk a little bit about. But jumping to that community meeting feedback, well, before I get to the results, this is the project that we were proposing there on the left side of the screen. Like I said, kind of a refuge for pedestrians in the middle of the road to cross a shorter distance, not have to conflict with left turns, and reduce the conflict points with the crosswalk. Now, again, it still would be an uncontrolled intersection. There would be the lights that we have there, and it would be a shorter distance, but it still isn't a controlled intersection that someone gets a red light and then a pedestrian gets a walk symbol. So yeah, that was the project. There would have, if we would have done it as the safe walk route, there would have been a reduced school speed zone, upgraded lights, and RRFBs here. Now, when we took this to the community meeting, part of the point of the community meeting was, hey, we've really been engaged with the school community, families that had students going to Silvercrest. But this project would impact not only the school community, but everyone in that neighborhood, whether they had kids going to that school or not. We are restricting a movement with this new project that would not allow them to turn left out of their neighborhood or go straight through the intersection. You can kind of see that there. It would allow left turns in, but into the neighborhood, but not left turns out. And as we took that concept to the public, there was strong opposition against the project. Yeah, the idea of restricting left turns out of the neighborhood was not something that was, well received by the neighborhood. They felt that this was not a project that they could, accept the sacrifice of that mobility. We kind of talked about, hey, we're generally in Herriman, we're a little bit more car focused on some of these intersections. This turns the dial to make it a little bit more pedestrian focused. We're limiting the access of the vehicle in favor of some increased safety and mobility of a pedestrian. Based on the comments we received on the QR code and at that meeting, generally speaking, that was a sentiment that the neighborhood and the community did not agree with. Yeah, you can see here that kind of pie chart or donut chart, I should say. There was 85% of the comments that we received, and we announced at the meeting, hey, the official comments are going to have to go through the QR code because that's how we're going to track and rate all these things. So based on those comments, that's the blue area that was against the project, 85%. Only 5%, the green area, was for the project, and 10% weren't necessarily saying for or against. They were more asking questions or neutral on the project. So lesson learned, the support for crosswalk or pedestrian enhancements or upgrades was highly contingent on maintaining the vehicle and neighborhood access in and out of there. Any questions so far on that? Okay. So, and what we did hear a lot in the meeting and on the online comments was, hey, why can't you just install a traffic signal? So again, the traffic signal did not meet the warrants that we would require to install a traffic signal at this location. We've discussed that at length at some previous meetings, but just to, iterate why we wait for a traffic signal to be warranted before we install it. there's kind of multiple reasons, but number one is safety. There's a reason there's a threshold before we install traffic signals. If we were installing traffic signals before they're warranted, it has been shown in studies that you actually increase, rear end accidents. So people are stopping at reds and people aren't paying attention because they're not expecting a traffic signal there. And so installing the traffic signal at the right time, make sure that we're installing it in a safe way and get the best safety improvement with that traffic signal. Number two is, fiscal responsibility. It's good to have a threshold on when we're going to install a traffic signal, or we get a request for a traffic signal at this intersection. They say, hey, you installed one there. Why aren't you installing one on this side of the city? Or we don't listen to just the loud minority, right? We have a threshold on how we're using those funds and responsibly spending on traffic signals or any kind of infrastructure upgrade at intersections. And then the last one is liability. So there is a manual that establishes this national standard. It's called the MUTCD. And that is actually adopted by the federal government, so it's a federal regulation, and they require that each state adopt their own MUTCD, Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, so that all the cities, everyone is kind of uniform in how we do things, in traffic signs, striping, and the state has adopted that as well. So we're kind of under those jurisdictions, and anytime we step outside of those recommendations, we're opening ourselves up to liability. So if there's a wreck at the intersection, a car crash at the intersection, and we installed a traffic signal that wasn't warranted, we're much more liable to get sued for that as a city, because we're stepping out of, engineering best practices at that point. So again, that's why we generally like to see the warrants met before we install a traffic signal. The second most common request we heard, now I will say, and John can speak to this, he processed all the public input. There wasn't really a true consensus on, this needs to be a traffic signal for those that were opposed to the project. This was just, some of the things that we heard the most. The next one was a pedestrian signal, or sometimes we call it a hawk signal. And we have the same concerns as a full traffic signal when you install it right at the intersection of Herriman Rose and Main Street. Poor visibility. The best visibility is if we were to offset that pedestrian signal, 100 feet to the west. But then it gets a little bit dicey with, cars stopping in the middle of the intersection. Are we going to even have, the students or the kids walk over 100 feet to walk back 100 feet? Kind of the similar detour question that they might just end up running across the road at the intersection anyways. If we did proceed with that, it would be a major change in scope of what was submitted to the UDOT. So we're not sure if we did go that route, that the grant funding could be able to cover that. We don't know. I mean, that's something, one of the options is we could kind of explore that. And then again, we kind of learned that, hey, it's not just the pedestrian crossing that's a concern at this intersection. There's safety concerns even from a vehicle standpoint with these offset lefts that we're not addressing by installing a hawk signal further down the road, right? And then I already mentioned this, if we pushed it to the west a little bit, it's likely, I mean, you always hope that when you have a signal or something close to another signal that, vehicles are going to see that and stop and leave the intersection open. But because this isn't a frequent signal, it would only turn on red during, when there's someone requesting the cross time, that you're probably going to expect that traffic not to be ready for that and, back up through the intersection. And then we also looked at, okay, if we did that hawk signal, there are still a lot of students going to Silvercrest Elementary to the east of this intersection, that it probably still makes sense and is safest to cross at the traffic signal that they are crossing at today. So we have some students from Riverton, we have, around the U Road, the town center area, that it may still make sense to have students cross at that traffic signal. So then you'd have two two crossings really close to each other, and we'd have to staff both crosswalks, have reduced school speed zones. And so that was kind of part of the reason why we didn't, propose the hawk signal in the first place. So those are, again, that doesn't answer all of their suggestions or recommendations, but those are the kind of biggest ones on why we didn't go down that road. So our recommendation based on the feedback is to retain the existing safe route to school, using those improvements that we already have, a traffic signal that is controlled and has walk phases and red lights to allow the crossing time. That would mean we would not utilize the grant funding. We would notify UDOT that the project would not go forward. Now, this doesn't mean that nothing would happen at the intersection. If you saw on the transportation master plan, that got a blue dot to look at, intersection improvements, kind of general. We don't know what that would look like. We could look at, additional warrant studies in the future if, there's a lot of growth, which we anticipate there will be. Maybe one day it does warrant a traffic signal, and we can look at, maybe we can mitigate some of these issues that we're seeing. Like I said, the visibility and the proximity, there may be ways around that. But at this time, we're recommending to essentially keep the safe route to school as it is today and not pursue additional improvements at this time. I can answer any questions now, or if we have any other, questions. So.
Bryce, thank you. That meeting was very well attended from pretty much the whole community, not
Yes.
just the ones affected by the school crosswalk. Is there a complete list or a breakdown of the data that's open to the public? Like they can go find it, search it, or is it just?
You mean the comments, the public comments? John, maybe you can speak to that a little bit more than I can.
I have a spreadsheet with everything. We haven't made it available to the public yet. We just have the summaries, but we can release that.
Okay, yeah, there may be some potential questions on that or what they saw. Because I know that the QR code was a very useful tool, and even though we had private conversations, we tried to direct everybody to put their info there, so.
Yeah, I'll say in the meeting itself, we announced it probably 5 different times. Hey, we are open to discussion and we'll take your discussion, but for tracking purposes and to, know exactly where, the numbers are at and for future reference, it's best to leave it on the online record. So we push that in the meeting, we push that on the notices that, hey, this would be the best way to get your comments in record.
And one caveat, I mean, I love the outside of the box thinking about the pedestrian island and the crossing. I still did not feel comfortable putting my own child on that rather than walking 600 feet. And I know that I'm not alone in that. I know that the police department would ensure that as well, that the safest place is at that controlled intersection with a crosswalk, with a full stoplight, and with a crossing guard. So I think we made the right choice here on this. And it may be a discouragement to some people that may want something there right now. But I think you've exhausted your resources on what you think you can do. And again, in 3 to 5 years, we'll look at it again. And it may be next year we might have to look at it. So we'll take that under advisement. But I just want to say thanks for you and the other staff members that were there that night and for all the work that's been put into this.
Out of curiosity, do you know how many people total took the survey?
John,
We had 59 submitted comments.
Okay, thank you.
Bryce, I'll say this, obviously, I think this is the right decision, right? I made this comment before, I don't know how, even today I made it. I would still like to see some, I think this is right out front here, this is supposed to be a pedestrian-friendly area. It just is. I would like to see some reduced speed limit looked at, some other I know budget's an issue right now, obviously budget, but some low-cost alternatives to slow down traffic through here. I mean, I don't care if it's to the school, to the library, to the rec center, full of neighborhoods. We've got to slow the speed limit through here. I know we're trying to move people through this area, but to me, this is too critical of an area right now. That's personal, that might just be me, but I think we've got to take some steps
And I
through
don't,
this area.
I don't think it's just this area, Mayor. I think this area is key because we have so many civic buildings and community buildings really close in proximity. But I think it's throughout. I mean, you're looking at 134th, Main Street, 126, 5600 West. I know we have some engineering and traffic concerns on most of those intersections and roads. We also have some enforcement stuff happening. So I think there's a caveat to it all. I think it's the citizens taking their own due diligence and driving the speed limit and watching out for pedestrians. I would love to see the speed limit reduced on Main Street, specifically for this area. I don't know how we do that effectively, or what that may actually cause. 5 mile an hour reduction, I don't know if anybody's gonna drive 5 miles an hour slower. So.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So just lowering the speed limit itself probably wouldn't be effective without, enforcement a lot of the time. Now, to the mayor's point, could we, do some infrastructure or things that help slow people down? Do we do some things that, encourage vehicles to look for pedestrians? I think we can look at that. And we did get that comment that, we were looking at the intersection specifically because of the school community, but it's a corridor, that we're looking at as a whole. So as soon as you come off 126, we have a crosswalk at the dog park that, maybe we need to look at a little bit more. We have the rec center crosswalks that have traffic signals, but, we do have an issue sometimes with people blowing through a red light, which isn't safe even at a traffic signal to walk, right? So I think you're right. I think there are ways that we need to look at the town center specifically. Can we make it a safer, walkable environment? What does that mean? I don't know, but I think that we could take a closer look at that as a corridor wide. And part of the master plan, I didn't get into this too much on that interactive map, has some safety recommendations that we could do throughout the city that, we could do these small improvements, whether it's changing signal timing to allow, for a lead time for pedestrians to get out into the crosswalk for a little bit longer before they see a flashing yellow that's opposed to them, or we just get rid of a flashing yellow altogether and only do a protected green at school areas. That's something we're looking at right now. So yeah, we'll continue to look at it. I think the speed limit change, it would require some additional things besides just changing the speed limit. But I think, yeah, it's something we can consider and look at and discuss as a group.
Okay, any further comment, or I'll look for a motion?
I'll make a motion to maintain the existing safe walk route to school, continuing to cross children at the traffic signal and decline the funds for the intersection improvements.
Okay, got a motion by Teddy,
Second.
second by Matt. We'll go roll call. Tara?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. That motion carries. Thank you, Bryce. Okay, stay there, Bryce. 11.2, discussion regarding the results of the community meeting regarding a petition to vacate the trail near Rose Creek Estates subdivision.
Yes, so kind of a similar topic in a request to look at, an area in the city, and that we had some public feedback and community meetings to look at it. So specifically, this is a trail in the Rose Creek Estates neighborhood that connects just north of 134th and just west of 5600 West or Rosecrest Road. So just west of that commercial area where the Vasa, the KFC, the car wash is, that's kind of the area we're talking about, a trail in a neighborhood. So here's a little bit better map of that. So that's the trail. The red lines are all trails, but the one that's kind of vertical in between the two cul-de-sacs there, coming north of 134th and coming up through the neighborhood, it's between, the backyards of lots. And so that's part of the background here. We received a petition from those that live along the trail to consider vacating the trail. And the original petition that we received was signed by 13 of the 16 residents that live on, or their backyards abut the trail. So we kind of took this to to this meeting, to city council, to look at how we wanted to handle this. So we were directed, okay, look at the cost. What would it take if we did, choose to move forward with vacating the trail? What would it take? So there's a cost to get rid of property. We would recommend doing it with plat amendments. That's the cleanest way to do it. And then whenever a record search or anything would come up, it would be the cleanest way moving forward. It would also require the signature of all the property owners, so it's a good way to make sure that, we're not giving off a piece at a time and then we have just one piece vacated while the other piece is not. And then in discussions with our city attorney, he researched and said the option's open for us on if we did choose to vacate the trail, we could do it all to one side, to one side of the trail, or we could split it down the middle and give it to each side of the trail. So with that, we also discussed, okay, we've heard, again, this is similar to our last item, we've heard from the people right on the trail. Let's now go and get feedback for the rest of the neighborhood, see if they're using it, see if it's an asset to the community, see if no one's using it. So similarly, we sent out, it was same time frame, postcards to this whole neighborhood and a little bit north of the neighborhood. You can kind of see how there's, some trail connections to the north. And then again, put the QR code to say, hey, we're considering vacating this trail. Give us your feedback and what you think of that, what your use is of the trail. And then that was a week before our community meeting. We had the community meeting. Oh, and I should say, right at the entrances of both sides of that trail, we set up an A-frame as suggested by council that had the QR code, had the meeting date, so that anyone using the trail would know, hey, there's a meeting coming up. If you can't make it, you can leave your comment on the QR code. And then in February, so that was in February, we held the meeting in February. There was a discussion there. Again, we said, hey, we'll have the discussion here, but we would like you to submit your comments on the online form so we can track and really understand where the sentiment's coming from and keep that as a record. So, yeah, here's just a zoomed in, portion of that, like I said, next to the Vasa, ACE, and KFC. So the results of our comments. So there was, a good mix of comments. In general, the majority of the respondents from the neighborhood indicated that they do utilize and enjoy the trail and therefore were opposed to vacating or getting rid of the trail. There was a good contingency that was in favor of vacating. Generally, again, we're talking about those that, see the impacts of the trail because their backyards abut right up to the trail. And from the comments from the meeting, from even before the meeting, we had heard some of these concerns: loitering, late night activity, security and privacy along the trail, trash. We've heard stories of these backyards receiving trash from those using the trail, motorized vehicles getting on the trail, lack of maintenance was a concern. So those are kind of the main concerns we were hearing from those that were in favor of vacating it. Like I said, you can see the breakdown there. About 60% of the responses were opposed to vacating, 30% were in favor, and then again, 10% we had either neutral or more asking questions about the trail. Before I move on from that, any questions there? Okay, so based on this, our recommendation, based on the majority, saying that they do use the trail and would like to see it open, we're recommending that we retain the trail as a public facility, but there could be some, small improvements we might be able to do to address some of the concerns. Obviously, we can't address all of the concerns. So additional maintenance, and Anthony can maybe talk to any questions we have here, but they've already bumped it up on their list to trail not to forget about. So the weeds on the side is something that we heard a lot of concern. We also could potentially, we have a lot of material at our public works yard called recycled asphalt. So the milled asphalt that we could maybe put on the shoulders. It's not gonna, prevent all weeds, but it might slow them down a little bit, give a better appearance on the edges of the trail. And then additionally, we have done this in a lot of our trail connections, is a gate, especially like one onto 134th, where you could get a vehicle or a side-by-side or even a motorcycle, you know, entering that trail. We could install a gate, and it's not your typical gate like a pedestrian gate. It's just a gate that restricts the width of someone going in there, so a pedestrian can walk through, but a side-by-side wouldn't be able to, right? And a bicycle can even fit through, but a larger vehicle could not. That would incur a cost, right? There's generally our Parks Department actually fabricates that themselves, but the material and the labor cost is a cost to the city. So in talking with our Parks Department, they estimate about $1,000, you know, in material and time and labor to get that gate installed. But it's something that we could do if we retain the trail to prohibit, you know, motorized vehicles from getting on the trail. And then, yeah, and then additional maintenance, like I said, they've got it on their list now to keep an eye on those weeds, whether it's cutting them down or spraying them, to make sure that we keep that trail not looking like it's abandoned. So with that, I can ask any questions, and like I said, if we have any maintenance questions, Anthony's probably the best one to answer those.
I mean, it's not, but we're going to do public comment, yeah. Questions now before we go to the public, yeah.
I'll wait.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, at this point, we'll go to the public comment on this item, just going back to my comments before about the public comments. So any public comments on this item?
Good evening. Adam Jacobson. I know you, most of you know me, so I really do appreciate what you guys do. I know a lot of people don't understand what it takes to do what you guys do, so thank you. The reason I'm coming to speak to you is I'm a longtime resident in this neighborhood, and specifically I'm the one that actually initiated the petition, so you're all kind of aware. Over the last 2 decades, me and my family have lived in our home, and we've seen a huge change in our neighborhood. And what that has changed is, as it's gotten more transient and more traffic along 134th. This trail dead ends into 134th. So even the idea of improving trails to tighten it up, a lot of the challenges, especially as you widen 134, you're going to put that traffic right up to those people. And so the reason why we're bringing this up is it's a magnet for loitering, unauthorized motor vehicles, and the future safety. As you guys just approved, that 134 widening will put this right next to that. So even this gate we're talking about would be a future challenge you're gonna have to deal with. The reason why we had 13 of the 16 people sign the trail to vacate is almost every one of us have had security. We've had people in our backyards. I've had people that you had to actually get out of our own playhouses. So not only do you lock it, most of the neighborhoods, we all had trail accesses off the trail. Originally, most of them have actually ripped those out and put in privacy fences so that, because we have so many people getting into our backyards. And so it's creating even more of an alley because of the lack of narrow design. You might assume that it provides essential connectivity, but I actually timed it. To walk from my house, which is the dead end of Arling Ridge, to the Vasa, to kind of give you a scale, it takes 8 minutes. If you do that on the public roadway, it takes you 9 minutes. So we're talking about a 60-second savings. And more importantly, we have that potential of putting people right on that dangerous. So I know the staff's recommending what they are. I've been working with staff for the last 20 years to talk about different topics of how to manage that trail access into 134. And as you saw from the last trail discussion you guys had in the crossing, because 134 is so critical, this trail is not it does not meet the Herriman Trail Master Plan as intended. That's for direct access. This is just a little stub trail, mostly feeding just this neighborhood. So thank you for your guys' time.
Thanks, Adam, and thanks for what you do as well. You've done more of this than I have, than any of us have, other than Jared.
I'm not as prepared as Adam.
Could you state your name, just so we have it?
Daniel Murray.
Okay.
And my house backs up to the trail as well. The biggest issues I have is the same thing with loitering and then security. I mean, we've had people look into our yards over the fence. We've had people cut through our yard, to get into the neighborhood for who knows what. It has gotten, like when we first moved in, we've been here 23 years, so when we first moved in, it was nice to have. Now it's an inconvenience. And to be honest, right at the end of the road, there's a, it's not really a park, but it's kind of a lower area. I think it's for drainage. There's a fence right there that'll take you right in behind the soda place, Fizz. Yeah, it'll take you right in behind Fizz, and then you can cut over. So his 9 minutes over to Vasa is actually even shorter. My son and I take that route during the summer to go to Vasa, so it's even shorter if you go that way. And it's not just getting to Vasa. I mean, I know a lot of people cut through there instead of having to go down 134th, but for the few that it does benefit, there's a lot of not benefits. And then mostly those are late at night when people are back there till wee hours of the morning doing who knows what. Lots of, I don't want to be the old man, but lots of teenagers, lots of things and giggling and things happening back there that who knows what, right? And I don't, you know, my kids are grown, but there's still a lot of younger kids in the neighborhood, and I just feel it's a concern. My neighbor has a lot of young kids, and they've watched people eyeing them down as they're coming through. I mean, thankfully they have dogs, and I think that's a deterrent, but still, I don't see the benefit in keeping it. It's not like I love our trail systems. This just seems like a one-off, and it seems an oddball as far as the Herriman Trail system. It doesn't really connect to anything. I mean, it does go over to, there's one other trail, but then it goes to 134th, so it's not like it's a major convenience. So I am absolutely in favor of, if we can, just get rid of it, not use it. I don't think it's that beneficial. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Peterson. I also live in the neighborhood on Arlen Ridge, just off to the side. I'm happy to see that the public comment, most of it is supporting keeping the trail open. I'm a big proponent of the trails. I'm here to speak in favor of keeping them open today, and I appreciate your time in letting me do that. The large network of community trails that were built in the Rose Creek estates are one of the most vital assets of our community, and part of why Herriman is such a great place to live. I've been using these trails for the entirety of my 20 years living in this community, and one of the reasons I purchased my home here. In that time, I've used the trail to take my dog to the vet, to go pick up prescriptions, to go to the park and buy groceries. I've pushed my kids in strollers and followed along as they were learning to ride bikes, and even a short-lived attempt at rollerblading that did not end well. All of this on this segment of the trail. Every day I walk for an hour throughout the Rose Creek community, and the majority of my walking takes place on these trails. I walk this particular segment every day. It's not just me. The trails are heavily used by the community, especially in the warmer months where I may pass upward of 50 people using these trails. These trails keep pedestrians and kids and families off busy streets and safely connects home to parks, open spaces, and natural areas. They also allow people to walk or bike to destinations every day, like nearby shops and grocery stores, without having to rely on a car. The trails in Rose Creek should be the model for development as Herriman continues to expand rather than the exception. Studies confirm that walking paths enhance community health, boost property values, and improve social connectivity. When this community was originally built, these trails were a core part of the design and the value of the neighborhood. At the time, homeowners paid an HOA fee specifically intended to maintain shared amenities like trails and parks. The HOA was eventually dissolved, and Herriman absorbed the responsibility of maintaining the trails and parks. Instead of paying the HOA, these fees were rolled into our monthly water bills. If you let me finish, that's okay. My neighbors and I are still paying these maintenance fees and availability to these amenities. Closing any portion of these trails feels unfair when we are still bearing the cost that we were promised long-term access when we bought our homes. I'm also concerned about the timing of this proposal. Obviously we put up the A-frames in end of January, and I realized that we also sent out postcards to the community to garner feedback. I just think it's kind of a end of January walking trails in a cold climate is probably not the best time to put up, but I guess that's here nor there at this point. Closing this section of the trail would break a connection in an otherwise well-designed network. Once that connection's gone, people will be pushed back onto the sidewalks. Once that connection's gone, which segment of the trail will be vacated next? Once that section is gone, the ease of movement will be restricted and access to the parks and open spaces will community will be reduced. I attended the previous meeting. There were multiple people talking about closing other trails, including the one that runs directly behind my house. I share the concerns of my fellow neighbors of loitering and whatnot, but I do see that it benefits overall.
Okay, can you wrap it up for us?
Yep. I respectfully ask the council to keep this trail open or at the very least, delay decision until additional public input can be gathered during the warmer months. This trail is a valued part of our community. Thank you for timing and considering the voices of your residents.
Thank you. Okay, see no further comment. I'll bring it back to council for discussion.
So yesterday, I had a chance to go out and I just, walk that trail and a little bit of the other trails that are to the north of that, going north and south. And, I think there's no doubt that we could do a little bit better job of maintaining, that. My baseline, the way I'm looking at this is, there's going to have to be a pretty decent, reason why we remove a trail, which is an amenity to the entire community. I would be curious, Chief, do any, issues in this area that you guys see on any type of a basis to, make a comment on?
Yeah, I mean, as we were looking at some of the data associated with it, there's definitely calls that occur there. The primary issue is when the trail originally was built, if you're like me and been here for 30 years, you had the 3-rail fence that backed up the trail, and so there was visibility, it was open. As more of this section of trail is closed off with the privacy fence, what you get is an alley. And alleyways historically attract unscrupulous behavior. And so it certainly is something for us to pay attention to be concerned about, that because of the way the trail is situated, the length of it, and the fact that it's pretty closed off now, there's always that potential. So yeah, it's certainly unique as most of our open trails go and can attract that type of behavior, so.
I'd be also, curious, and maybe I'd be willing to have one of you come back up and talk about the teenagers. Are these teenagers from the neighborhood, that are, there? Are these people from other parts of the city coming? Logically, I would think that these would be, kids from the general area. What?
It's up to you guys. I know how it goes, so I'm not trying to do that.
Mayor, I think because you let one of the other speakers speak in
longer,
opposition
let Adam
to
speak
it,
longer.
that,
Okay.
yeah.
That was a little jab at letting me.
So it used to be the kids, and it still is good neighbors like we have down the street. The issue is at night, it's not. A lot of it's the skate park kids coming down, cutting through to get to the fizz. And so it isn't kids that you can supervise. I mean, a lot of this petition was, I have a hot tub and I've had people that stand in my back of my trees. You walked it, you saw my green, giant, tall trees.
Yep.
People stand back there and put their faces through. So a lot of that is, they just literally, and especially as Cody shared, like as it gets more privacy fence, it gets narrower and it's getting worse. And so that's why, again, the city's invested in this trail, I should have said this, 5 times, and it's not getting better, it's going the other direction. It used to be an equestrian trail, and no one ever used it, so the city paved it at the city's cost. And so it seems like we keep trying to solve a bad idea better, and this was approved originally as part of the Planning Commission in a separate subdivision than the entire estates at Rose Creek. It was not actually tied to it. It has the same name, but it's not the same PUD that was approved on the other side of the street of 134. So it was more of an idea ferry, And that's why it's so narrow. If it would have been 40 feet wide, you probably saw it, all the dogs. It gets to the point where you
I said hi to
literally
a lot of
can't walk
dogs.
down it. Seriously, and I'm trying to wrap up. On Sunday, for an hour and a half, people were just walking back and forth. And it wasn't the fun family on a stroll. It was kids just messing with people's dogs, and they would go back and forth. And so it just gets to be so nuisance style. And I know a lot of those style calls we wouldn't actually always do because it sheer is the volume that wouldn't happen. But it is not, there is people that use the trail for good purposes, but not to the same level. And my point in this whole conversation is we're talking about a minute. There's still, the city still has great sidewalks. We still have public infrastructure all around there.
Thanks, Adam.
I'll just echo the same thing that Adam said about a lot of that traffic is the skate park. They're coming down from the skate park, heading over to Fizz or to whatever's, Subway or whatever's over there. And that's a lot of the traffic we're seeing. I do agree. I don't want to set a precedence of just shutting down, trails because we don't like them. This seems like a one-off, an exception, right? Like it doesn't feel the same as the other trails. I love our Herriman trails, but this one doesn't feel the same. It's more closed off. It's more, with the privacy fences. Some of us, we didn't even know we could put in privacy fences. If I thought I could, I would, just because I don't like people looking or putting things in the backyard, right? But to answer your question, traffic from the skate park, but I just really think this is a one-off. Our trails are fantastic. This one isn't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That help?
Yeah, a little bit. Make my decision a little bit harder. Gary?
Oh, just in discussion. Can we put the map back up?
I'm just giving you a hard time, that, right?
That one?
Yeah. In general, I have the same kind of sentiment that I don't want to take away any public space, right, that's been designated as such. In this case, I'm inclined the other direction for a number of reasons. However, I might kind of stop short for a couple of reasons. So, number one, looking at a lot of times we look at things in a vacuum. Well, if we pan out a little bit, yep, it's part of the overall development, and originally these are put in as bridle paths, right? So we'll be here for 30 years. Where my folks live, they're all half-acre lots, and they have bridle paths, and it used to be horse heavy, right? That's what that was put in for. In the 30 years that they lived there, I've never seen a horse go down that path. It is overgrown, like it's just, it's become a nuisance, and there's nothing that any of them can do about it, but it's isolated. It's just in their neighborhood. It doesn't connect anywhere else. It's not adjacent to anything. So the only real nuisance are the feral cats that are back there. This one, I have a hard time with saying that we've got to preserve it as a trail, because it doesn't really connect directly to another trail. It doesn't connect to the park at the end. It has it's close in proximity to that commercial center versus being in the neighborhoods where you get primarily the residential uses in this sort of trail. It dead ends onto 134th. That actually becomes, I know this was talked about while I stepped out, but it becomes dangerous for kids coming out there. Now we've got all the e-bikes and e-scooters and all those sorts of things. We've already had a death recently. I mean, there's all those things that creep into it. It invites those kids to hop across their street to the skate park at an unsafe crossing. They're like, this particular stretch to me poses a lot of issues. Removing it, I don't think damages the rest of the trails there. And connectivity, if we're looking across 134th, well, you need to cross at an intersection and connect to those anyway, and yep, we can do that with the other trails and the sidewalks, et cetera. If this connected directly to trails, connected directly to a park, if it wasn't close in proximity to commercial, if it was just in the neighborhood like those that are above it and that do connect the park, I'd say, yeah, it's not even a question. To me, the couple of problems in looking to vacate it is, we've talked about some in some of the work meetings. If we were to do so, how do we do it appropriately and fairly, right? I mean, you're drawing property lines and people have put in privacy fences. Now they're responsible for it. They have to take on that liability. I'm not sure why 3 of the 16 properties that bordered it didn't sign, but we'd have to reach out to each one of them and make sure that they are all in agreement, right? That they all agree to taking it on. We'd have to drop some sort of agreement where they're accepting that liability, all those sorts of things. But if it's 100% of them agree to that, I'd actually kind of be in favor of it for all of those reasons that I mentioned. That's about all I have.
Question, Mr. Peterson stated they are paying an extra cost on their water bill. Is that a fact?
Referring to the park fee.
Park fee? That's the same thing everybody's paying? Okay. All right, I just wanted to clear that up. And then, obviously, the maintenance, I know that we've talked about it, and it makes more sense that it was started HOA and then turned over to the city, so it's, little things like that get overlooked. I'm honestly siding on the side of Jared as well for a lot of those reasons. It may not be the public opinion, but all I see here are neighboring yards, and there's no green space such as the one to the west of my house where there's 40 feet of grass and a trail connectivity there. If I lived there, I'd be hard pressed to keep that open as well. So that's where.
Sorry, I said all I had. One last thing I wrote down I didn't circle back around to is things have changed over 30 years. And with all the developments that we mentioned, and you can see on here, you have the unintended consequences, right, that creep in from those. And then the dark alleyway, yeah, it just invites, it doesn't matter who it is that's back there, but you have a dark alleyway, and that's really what it is. There's no way to police it. There's no way to throw resources at it. Yeah, there's a legal term, attractive nuisance, and that's kind of what it becomes.
Any thoughts there?
Well, I was just wondering, I was under the impression that you couldn't put up a privacy fence on this kind of area. Is that correct?
That is correct. From our current statute.
So I was just wondering about that because, of course, like you don't want people seeing into your yard, but also you have created the alleyway, correct? By putting up a privacy fence. So I was just curious about that. I'm concerned about precedents. Even if it does seem like a unique situation, I think a lot of people have unique situations. And then also I'd be interested in exploring some kind of lights. Not tall ones that shine into yards, but maybe like a mid-height one. So I think I've seen things like that before. I don't know anything about that. I'd be curious about if there's a way to light it that stays mid-height, like mid-person height.
There's bollard lights and stuff they could do.
What?
Like those 3-foot bollards with cap
Yeah.
light stuff, but yeah.
That I'm sure would not solve all the problems, but might help as well. So that's where I am.
Quick question, John, how many respondents did we have?
25 on this one.
And I attended that meeting as well. I can't remember. You were there as well, yeah. So it was a great conversation and quite a good attendance too. There's more than 25 people there, but yeah.
Everybody looking at me? I mean, I get both sides, right? I'll be honest, I have one vote that I really regret, and that actually was closing the trail we did out west. I still look back, and I don't know that that was the best decision, still to this day. But.
Are you talking about the one off 64?
Yeah, the one off 6400. Just looking back, but, I mean, I get all the arguments, Adam, absolutely. I get all the arguments both ways. It's one of those I don't know.
It's just a suggestion for tonight. This is not an official motion, but just a suggestion is that we can continue the item and direct staff. I'd like to get a little more information on kind of both options. So if we were to keep it open to alleviate some of the attractive nuisance and maintenance issues, right? I like the idea of putting some, lights through there so it's not as attractive, but I mean, from an engineering and cost point of view, right, it's probably cost prohibitive, but I mean, if staff can give us an idea of what some of those solutions would be. And then on the other side, like I said, I still struggle with the issues of closing it and how we realistically go about doing that fairly, equitably, et cetera. So I don't have an answer, but those are just the issues I see on either side of it. Go ahead, Nathan.
I just want to be careful using the phrase attractive nuisance. It probably is not legally an attractive nuisance. People are maybe irritated by what's happening on it, but it's a public trail. We're not talking homeless camps or other things on there that are causing problems. It's just some kids back there. So just from a legal, I'm looking at Todd.
I'll explain the definition. Attractive nuisance is something on a private property that where kids are attracted to some sort of thing that's dangerous and can cause injury. So I think this would be more akin to it may be causing nuisances to the property owners, but it doesn't meet the legal definition of attractive nuisance.
Just to be clear, I don't want somebody to come back. You created an attractive. It could be a nuisance without being an attractive.
To me, the term applies in that, it's attracting nuisance behavior. Nobody's going to sue us for it, or I can't say nobody would, but right, doesn't meet that definition or that threshold. But it is attracting activity that's
Unwanted.
That's not intended.
I would say, like, I'm probably in the same ballpark as Jared. Like, for me, like the precedent of like just taking that away, like that's hard for, like, I'm having a hard time with that, but I also recognize the issues that it's causing you guys in your backyard. And I do think maybe get some direction from staff with some information on, ideas to mitigate your concerns, figure out what those costs are. And then, also if this were to happen, like all 16 would need to be on board and we would have to, figure out the details and, make sure that everybody knows that they're responsible for, the fence and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just thinking out loud for staff.
Okay, Bryce?
Yeah, just to answer some of the questions. So there were two options for how we would go about vacating or getting rid of the property and closing the trail. So we could do a quick claim deed for every piece along there. We're not suggesting that because, like I said, you might end up with two property owners that say no, and then what do you do with that property? They don't want it. So you have, a piecemeal of a trail closed but not kind of open. The plat amendment would require so there would actually be 3 plats now that I'm thinking about it. So the west side of the trail is a plat or a subdivision that was created. The east side of the trail was a separate phase, as was discussed. So that has a plat. And then the bottom corner, we haven't really considered. It would actually, if we split it down the middle, would go to that commercial professional office site. So that would be an additional plat amendment. So we would need, but on those plats, so on the west side, you'd have to have everyone sign it to adjust the property line, to extend their property line to the middle. For the west side, also for the east side, you would need the same thing, everyone on the east side, and then at that bottom corner, and I apologize, it looks like I've been meaning to say this, that all the labels for the commercial got wonky there. But so the plat amendment does, we couldn't record the plat without all of the signatures. So it does address the idea that we wouldn't be able, we wouldn't piecemeal it. But there is a cost associated with that, which we haven't, if we did go down that route, who pays for that cost? Is it the city? Is it the property owner that's benefiting from the vacation of the trail, that they're receiving more property? Those are things that, if we do go down the route of exploring vacation, that would need to be answered by, and direction from the council.
Todd, we can't force them to do or take action on their property. Could we? Like, actually close that trail off, take up the asphalt, extend their fences? We can't, once they get the property, it's their property.
I'm guessing we would make it a condition of them getting that property. But yeah, we could do it in a way that once that property's theirs, it's theirs, and they can do what they want with it.
But what I'm hearing is it's the way that this would be recorded, like it would be all or nothing.
All or nothing, yes,
So
would be
maybe
our recommendation.
Okay, so I think maybe the first step is to figure out if everybody's on board, and if everybody's not on board, this is a moot point.
Can I ask one question about that? You said 3 plats, and that's if you split it down the middle, right?
Yes, sorry, that's a good clarification. We're assuming that we're splitting it down the middle, and then half of the trail would go to the adjacent side and the other half to the other side, so, yes.
Which is, Adam, come on. Adam, I got to keep you. Sorry, I love you. But.
Yeah, so to that question, yeah, if you were to choose that the trail all goes to one side, it would be just one plat amendment. That west side plat goes all the way down to 134th. So potentially, if the council so chose to vacate and they wanted to vacate the trail and have that property all go to one side, the potential is there to do just one plat amendment. So it would bring the cost down a little bit because we're paying a surveyor to draw these lines and get it recorded with the county. But if you chose one and it went to the east side, you would then have 2 plats because of that professional office area at the bottom.
Is there anything different about how the plat adjustment is treated with a commercial versus a residential property?
I'll say the contacts are a little bit harder to who would sign for the property, but as far as the actual plat goes, it requires a signature of the owner of the property. It's just a matter of getting in touch with the right person that represents that property. But as far as the plat goes, it looks the same.
And then, can I just ask
Yeah,
one more
no, you're
question?
good, yeah.
So I'd be curious about the total cost of making the change and how much that might balance against how much like additional lighting would cost, right? Either way, the city's paying something, so.
Potentially,
Yeah, so back to the recommended, mitigations. I think we didn't recommend lighting because that is a significant cost. That would cost more than anything we've discussed as far as plat adjustments. There are options for bollards, but you got to find a power source. You've got to run a power line down the road, so you might be digging into the trail just to install these. And so, yeah, that cost is pretty significant to do lighting. The gate, like we said, is, an internal cost of about $1,000 is what Parks Department estimated. And then the ongoing maintenance is when they're doing their treatments of weeds, they would just make sure it's on the list, right? So,
thank you.
I don't know if, did that answer your question? Okay.
I look at this with the 3 different options. You're splitting either down the middle, just to one side or the other side. I think you're going to have different opinions on who, what, where, why. 13 out of the 16 would like this trail abated, or vacated, but now what is their understanding? Are they getting the trail? Are they getting the property? Or are they getting half of the property or none of the property? So I don't know what
I think that probably is,
Refresh my memory, Blake, if you can, how the trail was originally platted with their phases, right? So was the trail basically included with the one phase, or
yes,
was it
so the
split down
trail
middle?
was established with the plat to the west. So it was dedicated as part of that subdivision to the west. And like it was said, it wasn't paved at that time. A few years later, it was paved as a trail.
what I'm looking for is,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
That's what I.
how do you appropriately look at this, and that would be one good way.
In my opinion,
Yeah. However, it's still, to me, it'd still have to be unanimous of all of those residents, and if there's even one that says, nope, I don't want it, then I'm not gonna force that on them.
So let me try to wrap this up. Yeah, let me try to wrap up where I think, 'cause I love the lighting, I love the thoughts about mitigating. I don't know that we're gonna be able to mitigate enough, right? I really don't think we are. I don't think we're gonna be able to mitigate. I don't love the lighting, because that's another, again, it's just a cost, right? I don't think the cost will ever get there with that. Mitigating is just gonna be patrols, which we already know we're stretched on patrol. We're
Part of that mitigation, because of the fences that are non-conforming with code, would probably involve some code enforcement as well. So the cost to mitigate some of that would go back to the residents and not necessarily to the city to bring the fencing into compliance with code. So that's should be part of the conversation, because that would definitely have to happen at this point.
I don't want to go
Also,
there. Right,
the
I mean,
fencing issue, we don't allow double fencing in the city. So if they're going to put up their own fences, there's a lot of issues
Right.
with this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking there's a lot.
They're just going, oh, they just keep adding on. It's like a tumbleweed.
And that's where I'm at. I think I agree that, to me, this is where I'm at. I agree this trail is probably, I know a few people use it. I do. I agree that some people use it, but I do think it's served its purpose. But then I take the next step of how do we vacate this, and then it just gets so hairy. Like, I don't know that, for me, I don't know that taking those steps is worth it for me to do all those steps, because I think it's going to be hairy. So I guess where I'm trying to get, is we need to get a motion in place. We need to get a step. What are we going to do? I guess do we start with just vacate or no? And if we do to vacate, does it have to be unanimous? And then if it is, then do we take, from the residents, right? Not from us, right? Clearly from us. From the resident, from the neighbors. And if it is unanimous, then we come back and decide which. You see where I'm trying to go? I'm trying to get.
I think you might need a direction of if we vacate, yes or no, and if we do, how? Are we splitting it back to the West Platte? Then that's our decision, or are we splitting down the middle? We have to give that direction to staff, I believe.
Staff would also want to know who's paying for that. Are you putting that on all the taxpayers or just those who are going to benefit?
Oh, man.
So again, what I'd like to see is give staff the direction to show me both, right? So give me your recommendation for mitigation and the cost, right? Both one-time and ongoing. And then give me your recommendation. If we vacate it, here's how we recommend you do it and what it costs. And then we would have to decide, who. In either case, it costs us something.
Do you also want a cost to the residents?
Well, we just need to
Longer
know what the
that would be
cost is,
taking
and then we would
Where
have.
that allocated.
Yeah, and then we would have to decide that, all right, if we want to pursue that, does the city do it, or do we tell the residents, here's what the agreement would be, and here's what you would have to agree to, and your cost in it, et cetera. But the starting point, to the mayor's point, is we need some more information, I think, for either one. I'm not hell-bent on either one. I want to try to find, personally, I just want to find the best solution right now, and if it's mitigation is the best solution for now, the option to vacate in the future is always there, right? But I guess I just need a little more information. Give me some specific, if we're gonna do mitigation, tell me this is how we recommend you do it. This is the one-time cost to install these features. Here's the ongoing cost to maintain, et cetera. If we're gonna vacate it, here's how we would recommend that you do it, and here's the cost, and then council, you hold the purse strings, you decide how to do that.
I think that puts the public in a tough ultimatum at some point too. If they do not agree, they're gonna have to comply with the maintenance and the code enforcements. So, yeah.
At
Good
least
luck,
then
Mayor.
we, as the decision-making body, then we have, information.
Correct.
At least for me, I think we're making progress, but I don't feel comfortable dictating either one because of the impacts it'll have.
Well, Todd, Jackie, can I ask, is it, because I don't want to make a motion, but I'm trying to get some,
Table this
I'm
or
trying to get
continue?
some feedback on what direction to go. Can I take an informal poll about interest in closing it before we take? Because if there's 3 votes to close it based on, pending the stuff, then I think we need to take it. But if there's not, then I think it's a motion to
I'm
deny it,
interested
right?
in either one, depending on the information I get from the things I just
So that's
talked
what I'm saying, so you're open to, that's what I'm saying, you're open. So,
We can still not.
so let me take that informal poll. Is anybody on the council opposed to closing the trail right now?
Yes.
I'm not opposed right now.
Okay. Okay, so it appears I am actually right now, I think it's gonna be complicated, but there's 3 votes right now to look into it. So I guess let's look for a motion to continue it, right?
That,
Get
if you
some
want a
more
motion, that would be
information.
my motion to continue it with the direction I mentioned.
Okay. Is everybody kind of,
More information is great.
okay. Again, we're gonna sit here and just go back and forth because we're not gonna have all the information we
But
want.
that way, at
tonight.
least we give you direction, narrow it down to 2 things to give us some information.
So what's the information? Let's put it out there for staff so they're clarified. So what's the information we want?
At least for me, if I want their firm recommendation, if we were to close it, their recommendation on how to go about it, the rationale why, and what the
Legal
cost
why.
would be, and then it's up to us to decide, right, how that goes, and part of that's legal, how to go about it includes the agreement, each resident would have to sign, right, with whatever conditions we want to put in, and on the other side, if we're going to mitigate it and keep it open, what's your recommendation for those mitigation efforts? The one-time cost to install features, and then the ongoing cost to continue to maintain it.
I might add that maybe we contact the 3 property owners first, because if anyone's adamantly against it, then this just
I
doesn't
can't,
matter
man.
at all.
I can't, Adam, sorry. We'll talk to him. We'll talk to him.
I'll talk to you offline.
We'll talk to him, yeah. We'll talk to him.
But yes, we absolutely, like I've said several times, it has to be unanimous, so if there's even one of them that says no, then that's a moot point as well.
Okay.
And, we talked about who's going to front the cost. I can tell you right now, and I don't know how everybody else feels, for me, it's going to be the individual owners of the property that are going to front the costs to do whatever needs to be done. So if that feeling is mutual among us, we should just say it now. That way, everybody
Is that what happened last time?
knows that.
I would say that depends on what the cost is, right, in relation to what. So if we say mitigation, well, a lot of that it's part of our part of our city parks.
Yeah, the mitigation would be
But
on
as
the
part-
city.
But
as far as
I
the
think we
vesting
have
of
to
it.
take into account that if we go the mitigation route, part of it's gonna be enforcement. So those people that have put in those privacy fences, we're going to have to go tell them, take them down. Right?
Adam, what did you do to us?
I think there was a question about what happened on the other trail. The other trail was a significantly different situation. This is a platted trail. That was an easement across their individual lots. And so when we gave up the easement, there were no plats, there was anything. We just vacated the easement on property they already owned.
Yeah.
This one is different. That's why there really wasn't a cost on the last one just to vacate it. This one, your surveyor, if the city does it, there's going to be a pretty significant cost with the surveyor and all those other pieces.
That's why I say, when it comes to costs, Matt, it depends on what that cost is, the nature of it, and like we can decide, we can decide what we want to do in.
And the cost that I'm referring to is if we decide that we are going to get rid of this trail and everything's going to get replotted and people are going to have to move fences and all that kind of stuff.
That's on them, and that'll be
That's on
part of
them.
the agreement.
Correct, yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, let's do a motion to continue then, if I could, with the direction that we talked about to staff.
Am I good with, I already said that's my motion?
Probably not.
Jackie says yes.
Second.
If I had a motion on the table, I have a second. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes on the continuation. Okay, we'll be in touch. Thank you, guys. Okay, let's go to 11.3, discussion and consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 6-6 of Herriman City Code relating to the parking permit program.
This should be an easy Black Ridge
Should it?
discussion. What this code change does is changes administrative authority to the city manager or designee from the community development director, which the community development director never did the parking program at Black Ridge, so we're cleaning that section up. And then it also limits the amount of personal data that the city collects based on our new data privacy tools the state has mandated on us. So that's the code change.
Yeah, look for a
Any
motion.
questions or concerns?
Just to reiterate, this is we're just kind of moving assignments of who's responsible. We're not changing any codes with regards to the
No.
who,
The
what,
permit
where,
program-
parking, fees, anything like that.
The permit program remains the same, the boundaries remain the same. This is just some cleanup language for the city manager designee and also restricting how much data private data we're collecting on our residents.
I think it has always been in the city manager's office, as far as I can tell.
Right. We're just making it clear.
Yep.
Okay, let's do a motion.
I'll do it. Motion to approve ordinance number 2026-08, amending Title 6, Chapter 6, relating to the parking permit program.
Perfect.
Second.
Motion by Tara, second by Teddy. Tara?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion carries. Holy cow. 11.4, discussion and consideration to approve the Herriman Parks mowing contract. Anthony?
Good evening. So we're going to talk about the mowing contract and our recommendation for the contractor for that. So just to give you an idea of the mowing areas that we maintain, this is our mowing map. It's just over 8 million square feet that we maintain. These are our large park areas in addition to all of the park strips that we maintain here. Little background here. Last year we brought the mowing contract for approval. Council expressed that they wanted us to bring it back or put it out this year to bid. So we did that. We prepared an RFP, put it out on the 10th of February. Submissions were due by the 27th of February, and we did receive 19 proposals. So we had a good response to that RFP. The proposals were scored by a 5-person committee representing 3 separate city departments, and the scoring criteria is as follows. So 25% was based on organization and qualification, 25% was understanding the scope, 25% was based on cost, and 25% was based on schedule. So the cost was an objective number, everything else was subjective, and the opinion of each committee member. And then at that point, once we received all the total scores, they were then averaged, and that's where we got our final scores from. So this is a compilation of all those scores. The highlighted scores are the top 5 scoring companies that submitted proposals, starting with Cutting Edge Landscaping, Elite Grounds, Horticulture Group, Huskies Landscaping, and Lawn Butler. So those were the top 5 scoring companies that submitted proposals. The committee's selection overall, the highest scoring proposal was from Huskies Landscaping, who has been our mowing contractor in the past. They've proven that they are successful. They do high quality work. They've been reliable and efficient for us. They've been able to meet all the qualifications of the contract in the past. And they are able to do all that work with minimal oversight, which really reduces the administrative burden on us as city staff. They've been great at communicating with us. If there's ever any issues, they're quick to respond and take care of those issues for us. And we felt like, as a committee, we felt like it was the best overall value, while not necessarily the lowest option or lowest costing option. We felt like they did provide the best value. Here are the cost comparisons as we break them down. Again, these are the top 5 or the least expensive options. Cutting Edge Landscaping was the 3rd lowest. Elite Grounds, number 5. Horticulture Group came in at the lowest, with the lowest cost proposal. Husky's Landscaping was 4th, and Lawn Butler Holdings was 2nd, when we're just looking at costs there. So again, our proposal is, or our recommendation is to go with Husky's Landscaping going forward, but again, we're open to any questions or discussions on how we came about with our came to our recommendation.
I think it's impressive you got that many applicants.
Yeah, it was
It's
a
pretty cool.
good response to the RFP.
I also know that keeping the same maintenance or landscaper pays dividends that you can't just see on a bottom line for a dollar budget. So I think you're scoring metrics pretty well. So
I agree.
Just a quick comment. I believe it was Sherry this last year that asked that we do the RFP, and whether it's this contract or others, I do think it's a good practice to periodically do that RFP, right? So I don't know if we have a policy, Nathan, that, you know, every so many years, right,
We're pushing that process. It's 5 years, Kyle. So if you remember, a couple of years ago, Kyle did bring you a long procurement policy. It has it in there. We are trying to remind we're trying to remind all of our managers to be looking at that.
Perfect.
Training next month.
Okay, I'm good with it. I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve and award the Herriman City Parks Mowing Services contract to Husky's Landscaping as the highest ranked proposer, and authorizing the city to enter into contract negotiations.
Second by Jared, second by Teddy. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion carries. Thank you, Anthony. Okay, 11.5, discussion and consideration of an amendment to the DAI and Wasatch South Hills Water Infrastructure Reimbursement Agreement. Justin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A little over a year and a half ago, we brought an agreement to the council to allow a developer to build water infrastructure, specifically 2 water tanks and a pump station and some appurtenant pipelines in the south portion of the city to allow development to continue, because development couldn't continue without that infrastructure. So in August of 2024, council approved an agreement, a reimbursement agreement, to allow that to happen. In the agreement, it stated that there was 18 months to complete the infrastructure. And if that infrastructure wasn't completed within 18 months, then the developer would have to post an assurance completion bond for the remaining total and that balance. So construction started about 2 months after the contract, so late October is when construction happened. There was some pre-planning that happened, some preliminary work on site that was happening, and then it started. And then if you recall, I think it was June of last year, some of the council went up and took a tour of those tanks. So the tanks constructed very well. Since then, construction has been moving steadily, kind of roller coaster, sometimes more quickly than others, but it has been slower than anticipated. There was a portion last summer where we actually had to postpone some of the construction because of some of the delays. The cutting into the existing water line, which is the only feed out of that tank that's existing there, we couldn't allow that to happen during the summer months because it would need to be down for several days, which we couldn't. That was one of the reasons for prolonging the project as well. But overall, the developer's done well moving the project forward. There's just been delays, as I mentioned in the staff report. If you have any other questions about the delays, there's a representative here from the developer that could answer those questions. So just moving forward, what they're requesting in the amendment is only to change the deadline date for completion of the project. The completion deadline was February 22nd, based on the 18 months. They're requesting to move it out to October 31st to allow them to complete the project. The water tanks themselves are essentially complete. The one is functioning right now, providing water to that development area. We just don't have a pump station to pump the water there. There's a temporary pump that's feeding that tank right now. The other tank, the lower tank, they're running utilities and site work there before they are able to fill that tank and do leak testing. The pump station is the furthest behind. They've installed the underground piping. They're doing the foundation walls, and over the last 2 months, they've made a lot of progress there. And I think the completion date for that is the end of August now, and then they'll take a month or a month and a half to get everything commissioned. So that's why the date is October 31st right now. So essentially that's it. I'll go into some detail on what the completion and assurance bond would look like. So at the end of January, when the time the staff report was written, there's about $7 million worth of work that still needed to be complete of the $15.9 million that's reimbursable in the agreement. Since then, obviously, there's been continued work that's happened and paid out, so that number would be a little bit different, but as of the end of January, they would need to post a completion assurance bond for around $7 million. The developer has stated that obviously posting that bond could, impact their ability to complete the project. It could impact their ability to continue the water lines within their development, to actually serve water to the portions of the existing Herriman that this infrastructure would supply. So that's why they're requesting the extension, is because it could impact the overall project. As of this point, staff is recommending approval of that based on our knowledge of the developers been continually moving forward. There's never been a time where they've just not been doing something. There's just been construction complications and hold up that sometimes do occur on these types of projects. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have questions, Chase is here. He can address those as well.
I just have one question. I was curious when you were notified that we wouldn't meet the deadline.
Yeah, so we started having discussions about that around the first of the year, and the developers trying to figure out what they wanted to do. And I would say it was probably 1st of February when they proposed that they would like to do an amendment, and then they wrote the amendment, got it to us, and then we were able to get it on this meeting. So it wasn't just last minute, the day of or after. We had discussions around the 1st of the year.
Okay. Sounds good. I think we're good. Let's do a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the First Amendment to the Water Infrastructure Reimbursement Agreement between Herriman City and DAI, Rosecrest LLC, and Wasatch South Hills Development Company.
Second.
Motion by Teddy, second by Matt. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Chase. Thanks for staying for that.
The trail was on when I was still in the city. Bring it back up.
Wow. I love it. Okay, 11.6, review and consider a recommendation to amend the Herriman City official zoning map from OP, Office Professional, to C1 Commercial for .97 acres of property located at 6319 West, 134th South. Michael.
Thank you, and the applicant is here in the audience tonight if the council has any questions. This, of course, is a legislative item that has had a public hearing with the Planning Commission and a recommendation. This is just the general vicinity of this potential zoning amendment. The property is just a little under 1 acre. It fronts on 134 South. In our current general plan, it is neighborhood commercial, and the current zoning district is office professional, and that is consistent with the current general plan. The general plan also allows C1 zone, which is a lower intensity commercial zone within the city. So that is also consistent with the general plan. The applicant is hoping to repurpose or reuse this older home on the property for a bike shop. You can see in this list of land use items in the C1 zone that a repair service and general retail is permitted in the C1 zone, but they are not allowed in the office professional. So that's what is driving the rezone request, is to introduce this land use and hopefully reuse this property, which has been a difficult property. It really has never had a good land use in the 8 years that I've been with the city. This again is the general plan. This was a map in your packet. And this is the current zoning map. And of course, again, they're requesting that it be a C1. Again, it is consistent with the current general plan, so no general plan amendment is needed. Planning Commission did have the public hearing and did recommend approval with a 6-0 vote. We did have some public comment on this item. The residents who came were really quite anxious to see the property have some type of regular routine use, somebody who's occupying the property, maintaining the property, addressing some of the code issues or just general property maintenance concerns with the lot. And then they also specified that they would like to see some type of a wall or a fence that goes around the property. And of course, we have that requirement in our zoning code anytime we have what we call an incompatible land use. And where this is a change of use from a residential home to a commercial structure, we will require that fencing be installed with establishing this new land use if the zoning is changed. So again, Planning Commission and staff is supportive of this zone change.
That fencing is a precast wall, you said?
So it's between commercial and residential, so it would be a masonry wall of some type, yeah.
We can go back to the allowed uses.
Yeah. And of course, this is just an excerpt, but this is all of the uses for the C1 zone.
That's my question with these things, as was rightly pointed out. I've been up here for a while. It's not a question of what's being proposed now. It's
right. And that's
what
fair.
Would be allowed in the future, right?
Probably the only one that is a little bit odd to me is this resource recycling collection point. I mean, I guess thinking is it's a collection point closer to the neighborhoods, but those I've also seen those. I mean, that's a collection point, but it's also sorting, bundling. I mean, they're not great, but you could make that as a zoning condition that not be allowed. But I also think we should revisit that as maybe removing that from the C1 zone personally, but.
So I guess that's the point I wanted to make to the council, is if there's any uses that we don't think are compatible next to residential, not right, I believe there's residential on the east and the south.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct, yeah.
So we can always put a zoning condition on it that if there's any uses.
Can we do that?
We don't want, when we change the zoning, we can put a ZC on it and say you can do anything but these.
Yep, you can restrict land uses.
Talk to me about wireless communication facilities.
So that would be a monopole, right, yeah, or stealth. Mm-hmm.
So I have some. If we can do that, I have, I mean,
this where you've got,
we've talked
so
about
by experience, you've got more on as
right.
far as that part.
Well, I would say for me, I think church. We've been real careful about.
It's conditional though,
that.
so you'd have to be.
Still, you've got to have a good reason. I would like to see, again, if we're going to make the change, I would like to see church, of course, the wireless telecommunication facility, utility substation,
hospital,
hospital.
Statutory allowed anywhere on the church and the schools. Okay, good.
Mobile store, that seems like a very broad definition. What can go in
So this is, it is a conditional use, so it's just like what it sounds. It would be a mobile business that would locate on that property. We were able to do the drone up with that tool.
Okay.
It's just, you see these temporary land uses and, yeah.
And footnote 32 talks about a temporary use permit, so
Yeah.
it sounds like it's a temporary use. We have a lot of footnotes in that chart.
Okay, I'm going to start at the top then. Tell me, let's go down, and you guys tell me. I'm going to just, church?
No.
Hospital?
No.
I mean, I don't think that would happen, but
Right.
I don't know if we even need to include that, honestly. I would love the post office. Sounds like we need to go to Congress to make that happen, from what I understand.
Recycling.
Utility?
Hold on.
Recycling.
Recycling?
School.
Okay, schools? Any of the schools?
Go ahead, Nathan, I just asked Todd that question.
So both with churches and schools, there are also, well, schools, there's some state law that dictates.
I worried about that,
Churches,
too. I
there's
kept looking at-
federal
I
law
kept
that
looking at
kind
Todd to
of
stop me.
overlays.
Yeah, so with churches, they are permitted to be in zones where any like use is also permitted. I don't know what that means for how that looks for all of Herriman, but there's FERPA laws that protects churches from allowed to be in those zones, and that we can't discriminate just because they're a church.
Yeah, we're running into that right now. I think we need to keep churches off of it as far as restricted use. I mean, it's residential right now. We're not gonna, like I said, I think legally we're in a gray area anyways with churches.
Yeah, and a church can always request for a change to be made, and we can make a specific look at what the zoning is, what's allowed, what's not allowed.
So you're
and make a
saying we
determination.
could include the church in the zoning condition to restrict it? Say, zoning condition that a church is not allowed?
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Is the concern traffic? I mean, looks like it's right next door to a dentist. So there's.
So the dance studio, when that drop off
It
and
is
pickup
fun.
it gets exciting really close to that intersection. It is, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if we want to limit that, though. Like, based on that, the problem is if we limit this too much, then
Right.
I think we're pigeonhole. I mean,
For me, it's worst case scenario, and then when that use comes in,
Can we make these all conditional?
they have, well, correct me if I'm wrong, the process, Michael. Right, so if the use, let's say it's the dance studio, when they come in, it's already allowed, they have to go through planning and the
Right.
permitting process and adhere to parking and distances and
Correct.
whatnot.
I don't mind it. I mean, even a church, I don't mind a church. It's residential right now. I mean, we'd like to protect commercial spaces when we,
And that would go to, sorry, and
Then
that
we're
would go to,
staying
the-
on
and that would go to the planning commission, so if there's concerns about that, then they could put some restrictions on those sorts of things.
and even a chart, like school, like I don't, again, they'd have to go through the process. I don't
It's
want
not a
to,
big enough piece
it's
of
not big enough
land,
to do
but-
anything serious. If they do, it might be a small.